in some cases, kind of ludicrous growth from 0 to 200 million. By the way, Igal, how long did it take to go from 0 to 200 million monthly visits?
It took quite some time. It took probably a little less than a decade to get to these numbers. Numbers hit the first million pretty quickly, but it took another 10 years to get to a number like this.
And so, Igal, to put you on the spot, I mean, I know we've talked about all the questions I could possibly give you, and this is one from left side, but is that repeatable? Could you do that again? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Humans of Flipper. My name is Blake Hudson. I'm the CEO here at Flipper, and today I'm joined by Igal. Igal Stolpner is an SEO Trailblazer, and he's currently the founder of Webify.io. He was also the former VP of Growth at and a pioneering employee, I must say, at investing.com, where he carved out a fairly enviable legacy, spearheading the brand's meteoric rise from obscurity to a staggering 200 million monthly visits. Igal, that's a very big number. Igal's journey began in his childhood and obviously, as you would expect, started out crafting websites and then fostering substantial knowledge in what we call the SEO craft. 2 decades dedicated to it now, refining his craft, and he knows a lot about the space. Very big welcome to you, Igal. Thank you for being with us today.
Hey, Blake, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the intro. You basically covered pretty much it all.
Well, let's just talk about this a little bit. You've been doing this for a long time now. I think it's probably fair to say that you started like many. It was a bit of a hobby. You've obviously made a substantial career out of it. But what was the pivotal moment for you from those early days that set you on this, SEO expertise path?
So I did start at an early age. I started to learn computer science, I would say, to a degree, around 8th grade. But it wasn't really computer science. It was more like coding back in the day. Started to learn how to build sites, and that sort of like led me to SEO in the Alta Vista days. I was in high school back then. Then took a little bit of a break during my Army days. And then in 2007, when I joined investing.com, which had a different name by then, that's basically when SEO became a little bit more official and became my main thing.
And, these websites that you were creating to begin with, did you think that, I guess what was SEO to you back then? Was it even a thing, or was it something that you were tinkering with?
It wasn't really a thing. People did not know what SEO was. I think we all barely understood what it was. It was very easy to manipulate search engines back then. It's actually been easy to manipulate search engines for the following 10, 15 years until probably around 2014, 2015. And, when thinking back, it's like thinking about those people who invested in Bitcoin a decade ago, or Tesla, or people who were buying domains in the 90s. It's more of the same. People were able and were making a lot of money back in the day. I guess I was too young to think about this back then. And to be honest, I can't remember people speaking about SEO or hearing anything about SEO before way later, probably after 2004 and 5.
And so take me to the early days of investing.com. Obviously, you know your stuff, you get recruited. What did the business look like when you first got there?
The idea was pretty simple. Let's just build as much content as possible. One interesting thing to mention, and I think I've mentioned it last time you and I talked, was the fact that we started with multiple languages pretty much from the get-go. So the idea was not just to start with English, but multiple languages at once. And I think that was a big, big part of the growth engine down the line.
Fantastic. Now, from, I guess, ground zero, I guess that would mean, very minimal traffic up to a fairly staggering 200 million monthly visits. And then ultimately an exit for the founders, an exit for you, no doubt. Talk us through, I guess, the exciting days and watching the growth of the business, the strategies that you and the team obviously applied to get the order of magnitude growth that you obviously did, and then even take us through the exit process and how that all came about.
So let me speak about three specific strategies that I think are critical for the success of investing.com. The first one, we already mentioned that. It was the languages, and the expansion to a lot of languages is actually also one of the main things that we are doing today at Webify. And why? Not only because we wanted to differentiate ourselves, but also because there are lots and lots and lots of opportunities with languages that people are still afraid of. I've been living in the States for the last 2 years, and one thing that I can tell about Americans is that people here are confident that English is the only language. It's not even in the US. Did you know that every fifth person in the US speaks Spanish? Like, there are lots of opportunities for a lot of languages. So languages is a big thing. We'll speak a little later today, I believe, a little bit about SGE.
Yeah.
One cool thing to understand about SGE is that it's probably coming to the US market. It's probably not coming anytime soon to the European languages. So once again, opportunities with other languages. The second thing is scalable content. Now, programmatic SEO, that's the term, and it's been changing a lot over the last few years, mainly because of how many manipulations SEOs were doing. As a result, it's now more difficult to get pages indexed than in the early days. 10, 15 years ago, you could launch a site with 1 million pages, and pretty much all million pages would get indexed and eventually ranked. So that was a big part of the approach, making and building lots and lots of pages at scale automatically with data feeds. The third thing is that a little bit later, around 2013, I would say, we started building apps, Android and then iOS. And that was an additional interesting growth engine, because the apps were so good for users that some of that branded search volume that eventually came back to investing started by people getting to know and hear of the brand from the Google Play and the iTunes app stores, actually.
And Igal, what would be relevant about the strategy back then for operators today? Is it all now redundant and different, or are there some things that you did and the team did that investing.com did that can be applied in today's practices?
Languages for sure. I'm not saying let's just go and translate every single site to 20 and 30 languages. No, it doesn't make sense unless you understand that it does. But languages do have a lot of potential. Every single business and their own story. A lot of it depends here, but it's definitely a strategy that still works very, very well. And we can speak a little bit more about that too. Scalable content and programmatic SEO is not dead. It's not dead, it's just a lot more difficult, which means that if you want to build a programmatic SEO site, you just need to make sure that every single individual page is offering true unique value. And if that's the case, that's fine. What we need to avoid today, which was much easier 15 years ago, is just launching tons of pages and only changing the headers and titles. That's no longer enough.
Okay.
And the apps, by the way, just as any additional marketing channel, eventually, if you get more branded searches, you do better in SEO too. If apps is relevant to your business, that definitely might be a growth engine for a business today too.
And clearly, the growth that you experienced would be more difficult in today's
For sure.
context. Is that fair to say? Talk about because when people talk about these businesses and the exciting and in some cases kind of ludicrous growth from 0 to 200 million. By the way, Igal, how long did it take to go from 0 to 200 million monthly visits?
It took quite some time. It took probably a little less than a decade to get to these numbers. Numbers hit the first million pretty quickly, but it took another 10 years to get to a number like this.
And so, Igal, to put you on the spot, I mean, I know we've talked about all the questions I could possibly give you, and this is one from left side, but is that repeatable? Could you do that again?
Yes and no. I mean, and that's a question that I've been asked over the last couple of years. And the reason why the answer is no is simply because, A, everything is a lot more competitive, which means that you would need simply a lot more money invested to even get to anything like that. The second thing is that investing.com grew from 0 to a big financial brand in days where we were able to do a lot of things with link building, these programmatic SEO tactics. They're just a lot more complicated nowadays. So I would say things are still possible for sure. But if everything that was done back in 2007 would be repeated today, would that be enough? The answer is definitely not.
Yep. And Igal, I imagine that the approach and strategy you would take from a cold start is entirely different to the approach and strategy you might take with, say, maybe consulting to a brand like Flipper. Is that fair to say? And then I suppose, what advice do you have for those people beginning to build an SEO strategy versus those people who have an established brand and presence?
Look, I think that there are still the same things that we do with most sites. And let's say the first 5 top pillars of SEO, they still apply for most businesses like Flippa and like others. And it's technical SEO, just to make sure everything is clear, everything is correct, nothing is fundamentally wrong, and Google can understand every single page and the content on it. Content, in the end of the day, that's what drives everything. We used to say for years, content is king. Today we understand that user satisfaction or happiness is king. But when it comes to content, consistency is very important. Another pillar that we used to like to refer to over the last 10 years plus is on page. But on page is simply a lot less critical than it used to be. Okay, so you can tweak your titles. It's not necessarily going to give you the impact that it used to a decade ago. The fourth one would be backlinks or offsite, what we like to refer to as simply marketing, where we eventually look at things like mentions and links. And the fifth thing would be what I've mentioned before, that's user satisfaction. So Google, I believe, launched Chrome around 2008, something like that, and they still own it, they still use it, and they definitely track everything that we do on Chrome. I mean, they're not even saying it's not the case anymore.
And you mentioned SEG before. Can you just define that?
Search Generative Experience. Basically, around, I believe, 18 months ago, ChatGPT came and pretty much wowed everyone because you can automate tasks. And even we're using that for a lot of different things. It helps with clustering keywords. It helps with lots of Excel things. Instead of going and checking how to do pivots if you don't know, I mean, ChatGPT can do all these things for you. But one additional problem that started is that a lot of sites started building content, creating content with ChatGPT. Long story short, Google is now looking for their own alternative solution for it, which has been in beta for the last, I believe, at least 5-6 months. And we are expecting this thing to launch in the US in the near future. We don't really know what it means yet. We do know that it's coming. We don't know if it's going to stay. I'm constantly thinking about the fact that Google is making over 80% of its revenue from ads. So we are assuming that Google is testing it and will only keep it if it will not hurt earnings.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we definitely know that it's coming to that degree or another. And already today, you can hear people say things such as, oh, I can get some of my tasks done through ChatGPT and not Google. These types of queries might be impacted by this new experience Google is about to launch.
Okay, that's really interesting, right? So if you're a site owner out there or a business owner, and perhaps you've been solving for a particular problem, let's say for argument's sake, maybe you're a maths tutor and maybe you've got a website dedicated to math problems. You are now seeing some of that traffic hijacked by GPT. And
Right.
so I suppose, what do you hypothesize is going to happen? I guess what might have happened in September, and what do you think might happen to that type of site or sites like that with the SGE update?
So these are two different things, right?
Okay.
We've seen the impact of the rich snippets about a decade ago when Google basically demoted all the results for queries such as, let's say, time in San Francisco. Do it
Yep.
now from your device, and there's really no reason for you to go anywhere else because it tells you time is 11:45. Period.
Yep.
Same thing also happened with stocks, by the way. Okay, you can now go into your Chrome browser and type AAPL stock. It will
Yep.
tell you the Apple stock price without even going into any site. So we've seen this before, and sites survive that. Did sites see an impact out of these rich snippets? The answer is yes. So we are going to see a little bit more of that. Of course, it's a new scenario. We don't really know how much of that traffic will be lost. Some SEOs are guessing we're speaking about 25% of traffic. Some others are saying it might even go to 30 and 40%. And
Wow.
some others are saying it's not even going to happen. So there's a lot of options here. One thing is clear, definitely between that and ChatGPT, we do see more and more people using these solutions instead of doing the manual research that we're so used to. So one way to look at that is that traffic to commercial sites will probably stay still significant, but the funnel might be
Yeah.
changing a little bit. It might impact page views, for example. Sites that are monetizing through ads might be impacted. So if I would be a site with a lot of information, a lot of traffic from search, and monetizing with ads, I might have an issue. I'm not saying close your business tomorrow. I'm just saying you need to know that this thing might be changing over the next few months.
Yeah. How do I plan for that, Igal? So I'm a business owner. Um, I was maybe hit in the September update, or maybe I wasn't, but I'm paranoid. I'm anxious. Um, you're telling me to expect some level of impact for maybe a certain type of site. You've spoken about the funnel may be changing for bigger site owners, where they acquire the customer, how they acquire the customer maybe changes, and there's nuances there. But how do I actually prepare for a change like that? Is it a function of wait and see, or are there practical steps I can take?
So the only practical steps that you can do right now is you can understand what's going on with your with the SGE in beta. So if you don't have it yet enabled, you can do it with Google Apps from your phone, and it will enable it on your Gmail level, and then you can see SGE. So the first thing that I would do, I would take your top keywords and see if it's already making an impact on your keywords. Google is still linking to the sources, so the sources are still there.
Okay.
How many clicks are actually going through? We still don't know because it's beta. So all the tools that we are used to look at, SEMrush, Ahrefs, SimilarWeb, they still don't have answers to these questions.
Okay.
Now, the September update is a whole different story, because the September update, I believe you're referring specifically to the helpful content update, which started in the second half of the month. That started, just as the name applies, hitting sites with low helpfulness to people, to Google's users. Now, this started back then, and it's became one of the most complicated Google updates to get out of. So if your site was significantly impacted and negatively impacted by the helpful content update in September, and your site is still down, you have a much greater problem than SGE right now. And it's fixing whatever makes the classifier not like your site based on the content that you have on the site.
Complex, very
It
complex,
is.
right?
No, it's never boring in SEO. Never. Never. Not a single day.
And so take us through if you can, feel free to anonymize the clients, but maybe take us through a major SEO challenge that you are seeing, well, either you've seen in the past or you're seeing right now, and how it was overcome, and any learnings from that we can all take as a community to solving these problems for ourselves.
I'll take one example first. A big brand we've been working with, a brand that a lot of people are familiar with. One day, out of the blue, they had a no index tag implemented on their homepage. Now, a lot of SEOs and people who are following SEO are used to looking at this monthly graph or 3 months graph in the Google Search Console.
Yep.
But when one page drops and another page comes up as a result because of that no index tag, which basically tells Google, hey, don't use that page on the search results, you can't really see anything unless you're digging in. So one interesting thing is we've started actually building our own alerts for that, where you can actually get alerts when pages are going up or down above a certain percent for particular pages. So the average user in the Google Search Console who would just look at it once every week or months would not even see it because you can't see anything. You need to dig into the pages on a one by one basis. That's clearly one example. We've seen sites that have been hit by the helpful content update. At first, September, October, nobody in the industry knew that it's going to be as big as it actually was. As a result, we've started making slight changes to sites, which in the end just was not enough. Okay, changing when you have hundreds of articles or thousands of articles, and most of them are losing significant traffic with a helpful content update. Changing just the top 5 is simply not enough. You need a much greater game plan. So that's another good example.
Nice, Igal. Well, let's do a quick fire 5, a couple of quick questions to throw at you
Okay.
that might give our community some insight into how you tackle certain problems, or maybe even just solve some common misconceptions out there. So every day, Igal, I get pitched by these PR agencies and they tell me that good PR will impact my SEO. What role does SEO play in complementing SEO in 2024?
As long as it brings new eyeballs to the business, it's always positive. Meaning that one of the things that I've noticed with the helpful content update is that pretty much all sites that were hit did not have branded searches, which means people were not looking for the actual brands. It's sites that were building a lot of content at scale, and nobody's actually returning to Google looking for the brand, for the X.com.
Yep.
Okay, so PR that eventually leads to more people getting to know you is always positive. Then the question is an ROI question. Do you want to invest in something that will get you that or not? Not all PR efforts are doing that. Some of them do. If you're asking specifically about automated solutions that will get you to the likes of PR Newswire or all these types of things, I think that they don't really work for link building anymore, and they're not bringing eyeballs because people are not really reading them. It's not always the case. There are exceptions, and I can think right now of at least one publisher we're working with, which is actually getting good results with that, but the majority are not. So you need to see actually how many people do really read that and not bots, of course.
Got it. So, in other words, your SEO strategy works in parallel with brand building versus.
Absolutely.
And what about product management? How do some of the SEO tactics that we've seen over the last decade have actually, in at least my experience, impacted the UI and sometimes even the user experience because there's a technical aspect to it which doesn't necessarily interest the customer or is necessary as aesthetically pleasing. How do you balance user experience with the technical demands of SEO?
These things should not compete. Sometimes they do. So technical sometimes make changes in the user experience, sometimes not. But the most important thing to remember is that this user satisfaction that we're speaking about is eventually whether people went from Google to a result and found what they were looking for or not. And if the answer is yes, that's great. Okay. And that's something that we know that Google is keeping an eye on, okay, tracking. There's even a term that I guess has been in use in SEO for the last decade called dwell time. Dwell time is number of milliseconds that users on average spend on a site when clicking from Google before bouncing back. The quicker this bounce happens, that means to Google that, well, people are not satisfied with the result.
Yep.
So as long as we can keep people longer on the page, in a way, it's better. Does it mean we just need to fill it with tons of YouTube videos because we are hoping for people to view all of them? No. But it means that we do need to remember that eventually there is a specific thing that we want people to do. And if they will get to that CTA and they will stay and do whatever we want them to do, they're probably more satisfied. Otherwise, the majority are simply bouncing back for Google, hoping for something else to be found. So that's a massive metric that we're constantly thinking of. And look, we're working with quite a few different companies today. Sometimes making user experience changes is easier and fun, and sometimes it's not. Depends on a lot of cases and a lot of things. and company priorities. In general, I think that SEOs, especially consultants and external agencies, one of their biggest problems today is getting these priorities from companies. We see it across the board, really. But user experience is massive for
So what
SEO,
do
no doubt.
Igal, what do you mean by that? It's difficult to get priorities out of a client. Just elaborate on that, because maybe we can help some people out there sort of articulate what they want from an SEO consultant better.
I think that one of the problems is that SEOs are often coming in and they're asking for things that they think it's easy to fix, but in reality, it's not. And the
Okay.
company already has a roadmap and they need to launch A, B, and C in this quarter.
Yep.
And pushing these things sometimes is a little more difficult.
Yep.
One of the most important thing is not, if not the most important thing that I've learned the hard way over the last 2.5, 3 years working with clients is priority. Giving a list of 5 things that will matter the most. Nobody wants your 25, 35, 100 fixes list anymore.
Yep.
It's the 5 things that will move the needle. That's the only thing that usually works. And if there's more time for more things, that's great. But it's all down to communication eventually.
Just 2 more questions for you, Igal, if that's okay. So,
Sure.
you've mentioned SGE. We've obviously mentioned the September update. You've talked about the uncertainty, and obviously there's an impact of AI, machine learning models, and GPT, and the, I guess, large number of other distractions within that space that can impact a site's traffic. Does SEO even have a future? How do you think about that?
Are you asking me if SEO is about to die?
Yes.
Because a lot of people are saying that SEO is dead. I don't think SEO is dead. SEO is changing a lot. And what that means is that the tactics that used to work 15, 20 years ago, most of them are completely redundant. Okay. One of the problems we're seeing today is a result of everything that happened over the last 15 years. Okay. It was relatively easy to monetize sites. Everyone had access to all these tools with the keyword research and the search volumes. And you can see in reality today, you are just going on Google searching for things and you're finding articles that for any online person, it's clear that it has been made by an SEO for SEO purposes. And that's exactly what Google is trying to change.
Yeah.
So SEOs who have product in mind, product-led SEOs, which is a great book, by the way, by Eli Schwartz, an SEO from the States, is exactly speaking about that, which is a product-led approach to things we make. I always was thinking that product and SEO, not only that they need to work together, basically back at investing.com, my department was sitting under the product department, not under marketing. By the way, that's another interesting question that we speak a lot about in SEO, which is SEO part of marketing or is SEO part of the product? And I'm saying if your site is selling something that eventually is, and SEO is eventually just part of the marketing channels, it should be part of marketing. For a company like investing.com, where the site is the actual product, being part of product means makes a lot of sense. Then you sit with product managers and you create changes and bring feature ideas from an SEO demand. This is, in my view, the right approach, and not all these tactics that eventually Google is killing to a degree. So I don't think SEO is dying, by no means, but SEO is changing a lot, and it's significantly more product focused than ever before.
And if you're therefore an investor and you buy businesses on the basis of its free traffic profile, a combination of organic and direct, how do you think about an investment today in a content website, or an investment today in an e-commerce website that is generating good quality free traffic? Does your investment thesis change, or do you keep buying the same types of sites and assess them in the exact same way?
Look, SEO is massive as a channel because a lot of people are searching on Google, and SEO is very significant as a traffic channel for a lot of different sites. So I would not be necessarily afraid because the future is likely not clear. But there are some signs that we can see in the data that can show us that there are problems. There were 2 big updates over the last 6-7 months. So the helpful content update was the first. And then we had the March update. So the March 5th update, the spam update, which started rolling out together with the core update, the first one this year, is basically killing a lot of low quality sites. Okay. And if you have access to data, whether it's first party data or even third party data with tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, SimilarWeb, you can see the trends. If you're looking at a site and it was hit in the second part of September significantly, probably above 50% of organic traffic, and continued the trend specifically in March, you need to be a little bit more careful. I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm just saying be aware of that. On the contrary, a content site that has not been hit in any of these two updates at all and continues to grow, it's actually a fantastic sign.
Fantastic. Great way to end, Igal. We're going to let you go because we know you have another commitment now. But thank you so much for being a part of Humans of Flipper. Your insights are outstanding. Obviously, you've got a wonderful knowledge base over a very long period of time. So thank you for your consult today, and thanks so much for providing some information to our customer base. Appreciate it, Igal, and take care.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you. Take care.